Hi, welcome to this week's RNK Software Club's video for the week. I'm Trevor Conquergood, and I'm happy to say I'm here with my great friend Matthew from the RNK Support Desk. How's it going today, Matt?
Very well. How about you, Trevor?
I am also very well, Matthew. And so I'm always happy to get together with you, and you always have some really great feedback and sometimes questions. And so, what are we going to talk about today, Matthew?
Well, today we've had a few questions recently about text and how to make adjustments if the spacing between the letters or the words in text isn't quite what you want. And we wanted to
Right.
see what tips and tricks you had for us about that.
I will. I appreciate this is a good one. I've had a few people say that, since we did the latest update that they've noticed it gets kind of confused a little bit more. And so if we get that kind of a feedback, I always like to follow up, and see if I can see what's going on. And so, it's always helpful when people write in, and thank you very much to whoever did. Um, if you're going to write in, it's always really helpful if you send in a design like actually shows it, and don't just say, it's kind of weird, but actually like save your WAF, and then we can open it and sort of look at it. And probably one of the most important things I think for us is to know like what font was it, because we have so many fonts that to just kind of have it be like generic, oh, every once in a while, because then I'll go to test it, Matt will go to and try to test it, and it'll be like, well, it seems to be working. And so it's the question is, how do you make it kind of give the funny spacing? And then when it does happen, and if that does happen to you, I can absolutely show you how to correct it. And if there's anything that we can learn from all this, then we'll make sure that we get it submitted in, to the software developer to get it, correct anything that might be funny. And so, are you ready to get started, Matt?
Absolutely.
Okay, good deal. Thank you for the question. Let me pop up my screen and maybe hide that. So basically, this is one that Matthew said as the example, right? It's like every day we walk to the park and back. And you can see that the word walk is really quite confused. The K in the park seems a little off, and certainly the B in back is almost like part of the word and it's just there's small mistakes here. And they're not hard to fix, right? And if you don't know, it's not what you do is you select your text, right? So you have your select tool and you select it. And when it's selected, you need to right click where you can choose an option called edit text. And once you go into that edit text mode, you'll notice that the screen changes a little bit. The box around the text changed a little bit. Now there's little blue and gold handles kind of attached to each letter. And those are the things that we can use. Like if I zoom in onto top of park here and say, oh, well, it's this K. And now the gold handle allows me to move the K to like anywhere that I want to, and I could put it exactly where it needed to go. But the gold handle will allow you to move the letter up and down, side to side. Whereas if you, I guess, click on the empty workspace, you'll get back to all the handles again, the blue ones and the gold ones. So notice when I click on the gold one, everything else kind of went away, and it puts like a box around the letter K. And there's even handles. If I wanted to make the letter K smaller or bigger, I could do that too. So that's the gold handles are for individual letter changes. The blue handles, so to get the blue handles back, I kind of have to let go of the one that's selected. So just click off of it. Now I have blue and gold again. And I think the point here is blue becomes everything moves after the handle. And the one thing I'll say, and I need to give this as feedback to our developers, is that when you have multiple lines, if I move the letter D in the line at the bottom, I don't really want all of the letters above it to move. And I can sense right away that my blue handles aren't really where they're meant to be, because when I grabbed the handle that looked like it was for the D, it seemed like it moved something else. And so right away, I'm like, you know what? Somebody's right. There's definitely something that's kind of confused here. And so I will sort of turn that in. The one thing I did notice though that seems to be part of the culprit here is when I look in the properties box. And you see how it's like every day we walk to the park and back is on 3 separate line breaks? Um, well, Matt, what I noticed was like after every day, before the "we," there's a space, like almost like we typed it out every day. We walk to the park and back like this, right? So it was all one line of text. And then um, when we entered, the line breaks. So you basically put your cursor after every, and you hit enter on your keyboard to create the sort of enter for the next line. And so let me just zoom out and show that when I get it all in one line, there are still some things that are like out of place, right? But I want to point out that part of it is because since I was dragging and moving things around, it actually tries to remember that. And it's almost like the software needs like a reset button. It's really what I think, the recommendation would be, that you could say reset letter spacing, and it could put, because I'll demonstrate if I actually just start a new text segment right now and click here, it's going to put down the words my text as it always does, right? And it's going to come up with whatever font I created most recently. So it's already in the same, this is the font that we were studying. It's called Westwind. And so it seems pretty normal with the all caps. They're kind of crowded. But if I put my name, Trevor, and then just click apply, it's not, it looks pretty normal. So we'll just kind of wait for it to sort of process the stitches. And so, and again, there's something kind of weird about it. So I think this font in general is one that I would also turn in and say, because I don't often have this many kind of weird things about it. Like I said, you can fix it, right click, go to edit text. You have these handles. If you grab the handle for the V, sorry, it'll bring the V and the O and the R at the same time. So if I come in here and I grab the handle for the O, it moves the O and the R over. And then I can grab the handle for the R and just move the R over. And maybe I moved it too far, so I can like move it back. So it's pretty easy to move them. And like I said, the gold ones are for individual and the blue ones are for letter. And the irony is, I know that I tried this when we first talked about this, and I typed in Trevor and it worked out fine. So it does seem to be a little bit random. And so if there's any other fonts that somebody comes across, if they want to send in a design, maybe there is something that we can fix up. But I wanted to show you guys how to sort of work around it. So select your text, right click, go into the edit text mode, and adjust your letter spacing kind of as needed until everything seems like you got it in the right place. And then once it's in the right place, I think you're fine to stitch it out. So as you can see, I can micromanage the spacing of the letters sort of with these handles. But what I found was if you shouldn't change Trevor to be, and I think it was every day, well, that's not a day, we walk to the, oh my goodness, park and back. And then I click apply. And I think what happens is I changed the word Trevor to be a new sort of like segment, a new words. But I feel like the software sometimes tries to remember the fact that I had made letter spacings, and that might kind of account for when it's different from one time to the next, because one time you're converting, the word, one word into another word. And whereas another time you're starting with a fresh text segment, and so you're starting from my text, and you haven't moved things around. But notice that this time when I typed it in, there's a little funny space between every and day. Maybe the V and the E are funny, and it's sort of not consistent. So the walk seems normal this time, and the park and the back. So it's almost like it remembered those few little changes that I started at the beginning. So, okay, we will definitely put that in for, potentially our next update can have something to fix that. But in the meantime, I also noticed that when remember I said I thought we had put the cursor after the Y and hit enter, but that leaves the space. If you look right here in this box, I don't know if you can see that, Matt, but like right where it says every day, and then I hit enter. And so before the word we, there's like a space. I can actually move my cursor to like either side of it with the arrows on my keyboard. And if I move it to this side and I hit backspace, I can get rid of it. And I feel like in a way, so I'm going to do the same thing after the E and the, I hit enter, but I still have that space before park. And so I'm going to set it up this time and not have the spaces, because I'm also feeling that having the space in front of the line tends to kind of make it be a little bit more confused than not. And so once again, we'll see if we can make it smarter, but I really want to empower the people that are asking about it. What can we do about this, Trevor? If we run into trouble. So I was just kind of looking at it, and Matt and I thought this is kind of interesting stuff, especially for power users. Maybe today's not for absolute beginners, but if you've ever run into this, you'll be happy to hear about it, I guess. So notice how every day still has those kind of two funny spacings, which I think came from when it was the Trevor was at the beginning, but we walk to the park and back is actually all totally normal now. And so that's where, remember where we started with this one that you had, or the example. And when if I go back to where it was after the Y, and there was after the E and but there were those two spaces left in front. And so when I click enter, I notice that that seems to be really part of what's causing those mistakes. So the last thing I would say about this while we wait for it to kind of catch up is it's not wrong to do like a text segment and make it say every day, and then make the size that you want your text to be, and then select that segment and copy it and paste it and change it to be we walk to the, and then make another segment for park and back. And that will kind of alleviate that weirdness. So we're back to where we started with this, Matt. Can you see how the word we walk is really
right.
confused, right? And I think that's where we
Absolutely.
can fix it. Yeah. So not having the space before the we and the space before the park helps a lot with the spacing. But the other thing that I think is kind of weird, and I also want to maybe submit for us as some feedback, is when I move the text on the second line, I don't really feel like it should affect the top line or the bottom line, and I think that's
Right.
kind of weird too, right, Matt? Because you get kind of like that, I don't know, what am I trying to say here, where it's like you can, like, well, I mean, I don't want to move the word walk around and have every day moving with the same time, right? That's completely confusing. So the only way I can think of to fix that, like I said, is to actually just make 3 text segments, one for every day, one for we walk to the park or to the, and another one for park and back, and that way you have the ability to edit one without the others kind of changing. Yeah, so it's kind of goods and bads here with this stuff today. The other thing that obviously, even if the text is all perfectly spaced, there's like this issue with why is the everyday Y coming all the way down under the T? And that's because this font is really dramatic and it's got long descenders and very scripty kind of capitals. And when you use it, you probably need to like select that text segment and see where it says line spacing. It's 25% of a height of a letter. Well, that's fine if you're doing like block letters, but with this letter style, that line spacing would look much better at like 120%. You want more space than the height of the letter to get, and now you'll see that after I kind of clicked apply to that it'll probably space those lines out so that the uppers and lowers don't touch each other. If you
Okay.
want them to have that overlap, you can leave it in, right? I think that's kind of the cool thing about it. Yeah. What do you think, Matt? Is that too much for everybody today? I know it's not an easy video because we're kind of talking about when it doesn't go right, and what can you do about it. And we'd like it just to always be right, And this is what I'm saying. I find it odd if I have to fix everything else looks good now. It's like every day we walk to the park and back, but there's still the weirdness from the everyday. And like I said, I felt like that came from the fact that I had already edited the Trevor in the first place, right? So, but
Right.
I can still fix it again. Just right click, edit text. But what I don't like here when it's multi-lines is if I grab the handle for the Y, which should be right here, and I move it over, and so sure enough, it is. And when I bring that Y over, oh, look at that. So it's not changing the second line. So that's good news, right? But let's see what happens if I move the space between the we and the walk. Oh, also not affecting the second line. Interesting. So does that mean that the space in front of the line is actually the culprit? I'll do a little more testing is what I can say, but I hope it's helpful for people to kind of see how to find the solutions, right? So if you
Right.
ever have any text, to be quite honest, I often need to adjust these, even just it's more even when I don't, because I will agree. The word walk should have never been all messed up like it was down here. Um, but I was able to correct it. So I think that probably, you know what it was? Now I'm thinking, Matt, is that kind of really work our way right through this. It started to correct itself when I increased the line spacing. And I think when I was trying to move the word walk around, the fact that it was overlapping with the Y and the line above it was why the line above it was moving. So once again, I still think I can give this all as feedback to our developers because maybe it can be made smarter. I'll even go back to the previous build just to make sure that it somehow isn't different, but I think it's actually been this way. To be honest, Matt, I think it's been this way for a long time. I don't think it's about the update, but I could be wrong. And so I'm always happy to get that, information if there's something specific that one of our helpful customers, especially the really knowledgeable customers that notice something different, just let us know. This was a fun video, Matt. I don't know if everybody enjoyed it, but thank you for the question.
Absolutely. I think it was a good one.
Thank you for taking such good care of all of our wonderful customers, Matt. I have to be honest, when I go out to stores, I often get really nice comments about, he even replied to me after hours, or, I only waited a few minutes before I got a reply. And those are amazing comments. So thank you, Matthew.
Certainly, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
So, and thank you to everybody for being awesome Floriani people. On behalf of myself and Matthew and everybody RNK, we love you guys and hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll let you go for now.